Welcome back. We now begin with our first session on fabulous ecosystem. I would like to invite on stage the panelists, Mr. Hitesh Garg, our keynote speaker for today, VP and Country Manager, NXP Semiconductors, Mr. Sandeep Kumar, please have a seat. Mr. Sandeep Kumar, CEO, L&T Semiconductor Tech, Mr. Sandeep Gupta, MD, Alpha Wave Semiconductors, Mr. Manoj Soman, Independent Tech Consultant, and Mr. Niranjan Pol, IESA Maharashtra Chapter. I request Mr. Ajit Chikteri to please felicitate the guests. Thank you, sir. I now take this opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Hitesh Garg, VP and Country Manager, NXP Semiconductors. He has been leading the India business operations for all 4 sites, Noida, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Pune. He also serves as the R&D leader for AMS Competence Center in NXP. He has more than 25 years of experience in analog mixed signal product development. We are glad to have you here, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Very good afternoon, I believe. Still good morning. Very good morning. Very happy to be in Pune, to be part of, I would say, Semiconductor Ecosystem Conference here in Pune. I think part of this session, I will try to explain basically on the opportunities that we see, the growth opportunities in the semiconductor ecosystem as we grow, right? So what we see, so these are, I would say, the innovation drivers that we see in the ecosystem. If you see these innovation drivers, they are not changing big time in last 5 to 7 years. So I think they are, this slide probably I'm showing it for last 5 to 7 years, so there's no big change. But the intensity and the momentum of the various sections is changing around us. For example, AI, you might have seen, I think everybody knows NVIDIA, how NVIDIA is riding on the AI wave, and a lot of other companies like IP companies, ARM. So as we see, the world is changing, so these are the opportunities which semiconductor ecosystem puts in front of us. Also, I think we discussed in the morning part that by 2030, the semiconductor industry is going to be $1 trillion. So I saw a kind of an updated number that it is going to be $1.2 trillion. And what are the drivers? What are the drivers that we see? So one of the key drivers that we see is AI from the cloud to the secure edge. So these are the key drivers which probably is taking us from 550 or 600 billion dollars to $1 trillion or $1.2 trillion. As you see, there were 3 waves that we see in 2000 to 2010. It was more the laptop, desktop, mobiles. In 2010, 2020, we start seeing the smartphones driving the wave. And in this decade, we see the secure edge, artificial intelligence, cloud to edge, smart connected devices. So they are going to define how the future will look like. Again, where are these smart devices, right? What are the application areas? We see almost in, I would say, broadly into 4 segments: industrial, healthcare, smart home, automotive. So we talk about AI definitely on the central compute, but I think AI on the edge is the key driver for growth. We talk about digital twins, right? So in all these areas, maybe I'll dwell a bit more, but this is the key driver that we see at this moment. Okay, how these smart connected devices will look like or should look like? What is driving this kind of growth? And how these devices should be, right? So what we see is by 2030, I would say more than 50, or some people are saying 75 billion smart connected AI devices. And for that, we are having some of the key things that we need to have in our devices. Of course, the challenges which we call it is ultra low power, of course, system security, functional safety, AI ML, of course, the things should be real time. And so, and these are, I think you see multiple applications in compute, in industrial, also in automotive, which are driving these 50 billion smart connected devices. Again, we are in Pune. This is the epicenter of automotive industry in the country. And automotive, we see, is one of the key growth drivers in 2030, or maybe coming 10 years. So what is driving growth in automotive? I think what are the key differentiators, key drivers? So three key things: autonomy, electrification, and connectivity. So we are talking about autonomous cars, right? So level 3, level 4, level 5. So more and more cars are going to be sophisticated. Electrification, as you see, two-wheelers are, I would say in India, we have more than 20-30% two-wheelers are electrified. Coming decade, we'll see maybe 80-90% two-wheelers, three-wheelers, they will be all electric. Same situation we see in the cars. And when we are in the cars, we all need to be fully connected. The technologies, underlying technologies, in a very, very simple terms, I think we need to have 4 key verticals for technologies. Sense, simply like we humans sense, think, connect, and act. We also try to put our technologies into these 4 buckets. Sensing technologies, thinking means all the compute, connectivity, all kind of connectivity, inside and outside, and also actuation technologies. On top of that, one of the things which is very, very important, all the devices should be trustworthy. The security, when we talk about connectivity, is equally important. And now we talk about another technology, it should be scalable system solutions. So how you integrate all these technologies into something. For example, we talk about mobile phone, where we had Androids of this world, but when you talk about a car, how can the car be a software-driven vehicle? So we need to think from, or these are the challenges that we are thinking from our perspective. Sensing is really the key. We need to, I would say, maybe I dwell a bit into the biology now. So these are the different parts of the brain. You see brainstem, you see cerebellum, you see cerebrum. A lot of the motor control things, right, where you need not to think, right, they are all done by the brainstem or the cerebellum. If you trip, your body already reacts immediately. Okay, you stand up. But then you start seeing, okay, what was the problem, why I tripped, what need to be fixed in the road or on the dais. So those are all done by cerebrum. So when we map our chips into this, right, so you talk about AI chips and those chips, the high-end chips, they are all going to be part of cerebrum. But for the real-time functions, for the critical functions, I think we need to also look at how we do these cerebellum's implementation of the brainstems when we talk about the technologies inside a car or in an automobile or in industrial kind of domains. Again, we need various compute, and here I talk about, okay, end-to-end plethora of, you can say, the technologies and also the processing kind of prowess that we have for various functions inside a car. Another thing which is going to be key in the car is the connectivity, right? When we talk about software-driven vehicle, we also need to see how the networks or how the car architectures will look like. So these are the four simple architectures. It's domain-based, body-based, to cross-domain, zonal, consolidate, compute. So every OEM is defining the Tatas, Mahindras, or the BMWs, the Audis of this world. So they are picking one or the other architecture, that how their future cars will look like. And we as a technology provider, system provider, we need to meet the requirements of those OEM, looking at all various options. And as I said, some of them are even doing a mix and match, right? So car maker A will say, okay, I'll go with a flat architecture, or probably a fully centralized. Car maker B might be going into domain-based. Somebody will go into hybrid zone. So these are the challenges when people are designing the cars, right? So that we see in front of us. So your solutions need, when we talk about sensing technologies, we need to also take care, okay, so for example, the radar and LiDAR, so that they should be very, very trustworthy. When we talk of compute technology, we need to see end-to-end compute needs, connectivity, catering to these various architectures that we see which are upcoming. And on top of that, I talked about software. So I think software system capabilities to reduce the integration challenges. And these software are not, I think, your mobile phone or anything like that. I think the complexity of the software which we are going to see in the car is going to be 10 or 100 times more than what we see, or the problems that we have solved in the mobile phone market. Again, there are certain platforms that we can build to solve these issues. How do we integrate the connectivity, the compute, the sensing, and various kind of, or actuation kind of challenges. So I would say, just to summarize my talk, when we talk about software-driven robots, software-driven robots inside an automotive, or you talk about also software-defined industrial kind of applications, there are four things that we need to do. One, we are seeing architectural transitions. Of course, we need more and more superior sensors. Again, we need to have the right level of trust provisioning, right? When we talk about AI, machine learning, so they need to be deterministic, real-time system, because they need to react immediately. And last but not the least, a software, a powerful toolbox which will integrate all the solutions. And nobody can do it together alone, so we are all together in this. So with this, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I now introduce our second keynote speaker and the moderator for this session, Mr. Sandeep Kumar. He is the CEO of L&T Semiconductor Tech. With over 35 years of experience, in building technology, businesses, financing, and global partnerships. Mr. Kumar has co-founded Kiski Japan Fund, TPMC Japan, and Gap US, and has served as the chief mentor for Neuron, an AI center of excellence by the Indian government. I request Mr. Kumar to deliver his address.
ऐसे ही कर लूँ इट्स ओके दो तीन ही तो है हाँ कर दो हेलो ठीक हाय एवरीवन पहले आई वांट टू आस्क अ क्वेश्चन How many in this room are IC designers? Esta. many are from academia? How many are from the users of ICs? Interesting. Uh, so the topic of this conference and the topic of today is how to build the fab ecosystem in India for semiconductors. And this particular topic is how to build a fabless ecosystem. So all of you IC designers, get ready with your questions. I want to know, अभी तक आपने कंपनी शुरू क्यों नहीं करी? So, and that's a genuine question because अब इंडिया में क्या हो रहा है कि people sometimes confuse $300 billion की जो market है, that is the electronics market. ऊपर ये center point में, this is a center point chart, they called it India Semiconductor market, but 300 billion is not semiconductor. That is the electronics market. Inside that electronics market, roughly 20% of that is semiconductor content. So 60 billion. उस 60 billion में से about 30% or 40% will be, 30% will be PCBs, passives, and then the rest is more complex ICs. Almost 100% of those ICs are imported. 80% of those imports come from China. So that is the problem we have to solve. Also, that is the opportunity we have. अगर वो कर सकते हैं तो बहुत बड़ा बिजनेस बन गया. करने के लिए क्या क्या चैलेंज है? Most of you who know semiconductors, अगर semiconductor is a volume game. They are called chips. Where each chip is more complicated than a potato chip. But it actually sells for a less price than a potato chip. It is a huge volume game. You have to make millions, if not tens of millions, hundreds of millions. तो इतनी बड़ी मार्केट तो इंडिया में है नहीं. और अगर आप सेल फोन बनाओगे और उसके अंदर कोई चिप लगाओगे तो you will not use a substandard chip क्योंकि आपका सेल फोन ही नहीं बिकेगा. So you have to make a chip that is better than the world class in order to displace them. So दो चीजें हैं इसमें. Your product has to be much better than what NXP makes. Then only you can displace NXP. And you have to sell it globally. Because if you only sell to the Indian people, there is not enough volume. So it might be better than NXP, but it will be more expensive than the NXP chip. तो कोई खरीदेगा नहीं. So that is the challenge, actually. There is a third challenge, and I will show you what that is. अब जैसे ये, actually before I go, तो अब ये news आई थी 42 में एक महीने पहले. They are very proud, and we should be very proud. There are 10 to 15 startups in India, semiconductor. So that's a good start. मगर get to a product startup. People will say there is a good ecosystem. There is a good ecosystem. There is a good foundation. Talent is not the issue in this country. 20% of the world's IC design engineers are in India. 1/5. More than Japan, more than Europe, 1/5. Every major company, top 20, not just major, the top 20 companies in the world in semiconductors, their second biggest design center is in India. Right? That is the talent. So it's not an issue of talent. Not the design talent. It is an issue of talent actually, but a different kind of talent. तो हमारे पास क्या, what is the opportunity? What is it we have? One thing, some trends, तो मैं बोल रहा था ना कि one of the biggest issues is when we were saying कि अब जैसे 300 billion का system EMS market है. 300 बिलियन में से 60 बिलियन का मार्केट है क्योंकि एप्पल का फ़ोन यहाँ पे बनने लगा. एप्पल के फ़ोन के अंदर कोई चिप रिप्लेस करनी है तो यहाँ पे तो कोई डिसीजन नहीं होगा, वो तो यूएस में होता है. तो द डिज़ाइन डिसीजंस ऑफ ऑलमोस्ट ऑल द सिस्टम्स दैट आर मेड इन इंडिया, मैन्युफैक्चर्ड इन इंडिया, आर मेड आउटसाइड. So you have to go convince them. हम automotive की market के बारे में बात करते हैं. Yes, it consumes a lot of electronics, and yes, all of that gets imported. But whether it is ZF or it is, I'll take some names that are the makers. Bosch है, Denso है, ZF है, Conti है. ये सब foreign companies हैं और उनके design decisions बाहर होते हैं. That is where they decide what IC to use. Then that design comes here and it gets manufactured here. तो अगर हम design यहाँ पे IC product की company खड़ी करना चाहते हैं, so we have to make it have a ability to go outside and convince the customer in US or Germany or Japan कि मेरा product खरीदो. तब वो उस board में जाएगा, फिर वो यहाँ पर आएगा, फिर वो import रुकेगा. 80% of the market is that way. There are some very narrow markets where the design decision can be made here. So, एक तो यह तो there is some happening in consumer electronics, IT and aerospace and defense. वो यहाँ पर decision हो रहा है, तो उसके अंदर जो product लगेगा, there is a chance that we can design it here and it gets integrated. The second is people will say processor बनाते हैं. Processor बनाते हैं तो there are 3 companies in the world. Qualcomm है, Intel है, Nvidia है. Trying to beat those 3 is not, matlab it can take a lifetime and even then you may not succeed. कुछ कहते हैं memory बनाते हैं, तो memory में भी there are 4 or 5 players. Trying to beat them, SK Hynix, Toshiba, Micron, you won't succeed. So now the opportunity sits in power, analog, RF. उसमें 100 कंपनियां हैं दुनिया में, हर एक कुछ बनाता है. So you have to figure out what is the space, empty space where you can compete. तीसरी चीज़ है कि आजकल there is a new area. opening up, जहाँ पे कोई भी is not a leader. So if you are working in silicon germanium RF, or you are working on RF and gallium nitride, या फिर आप power chip बना रहे हो gallium nitride में या silicon carbide में, that is a huge opportunity because nobody dominates that market, nobody controls it, and the demand for that is growing faster than the rest. So if you are going to start something, those are some areas you should think about. Challenges, थोड़े बहुत तो बता दिए, but one big challenge is हमारी design की talent is world class. मगर जो product, ये जो design talent है working for the multinationals, most of the specifications of what to implement, क्या करना है उस product में, और उसका architecture, वो बाहर से आता है, और वो बनता है customer interaction के साथ. So the exposure to that whole stuff is limited. तो हम product define नहीं कर पाते. मैंने जब research करी 60 companies की, that was the main problem. मतलब they are doing something, but the product roadmap and definition, interaction with customers on a global scale is very critical, and that's हम engineering के basis पे बना देते हैं कि भाई कोई खरीद लेगा, हमने तो बहुत अच्छी बना दी. But that is not enough. If you are building a business, you have to start with the customer, understand their needs. The customer is a global customer, not the customer in India. और उसके बाद उसको architect करो, उसके बाद शुरू करो. So that is a big gap. और वो gap अभी तो globally solve होगा, क्योंकि इंडिया में दूसरा gap जो है ना, वो है कि अभी system company कोई नहीं है. मतलब इंडिया का डेंजो नहीं है, इंडिया का बॉश नहीं है, इंडिया का एप्पल नहीं है, इंडिया का हुआवे नहीं है, क्योंकि वो सिस्टम बनाते हैं, वो कंज्यूम करते हैं सेमीकंडक्टर. तो जब तक वो यहाँ पर नहीं होंगे तो हमको बाहर जाना पड़ेगा. हम कहते हैं चाइना में हो गया, चाइना में पहले सिस्टम कंपनीज खड़ी हुई. हायर है, हाईसेंस है, टीसीएल है, चांगोंग है, उन्होंने टीवी बनाए, उन्होंने एयर कंडीशनर बनाए, उन्होंने सेल फोन बनाए बाहर की चिप के साथ, फिर चिप लोकली बनाई. हुआवे है, पहले बाहर की चिप लेता है, तभी तो यूएस ने बंद कर दी ना चिप उनको, तो उनको 2 साल 3 साल उनको तंगी हुई. So even up till now they were dependent on foreign chips. So slowly, because now they are making them locally. BYD है, बाहर से लेता है. Now they have started making locally because the know-how is there. So I'll stop there because I just wanted to frame, I mean, some of these problems and challenges are what is the backbone of how we are setting up L&T Semiconductor. But the goal today's session is fabulous ecosystem, यहाँ पर कैसे शुरू हो. So that is my quick talk, and now I want to, we have a good panel, so every one of them will give a little bit about their background.
Hello everyone, I'm Sandeep Gupta, Managing Director for AlphaWave Semi. I'm based out of Pune. I am a Punekar, born and brought up here, spent almost my entire life over here, except for the 7 years that I was in the US and Bangalore. I've been in this industry for almost 25 years, started with a company called CG Corel. I have some of my colleagues who started along with me over here. So it was one of the first companies, startup companies. Crompton Greaves started that. So very lucky to get into this industry through that. And then I've worked with many companies designing SOCs, what we call as SOCs. I saw the hands, not too many IC designers here, but so SOC stands for System on Chip, where we are integrating a very large piece of logic, essentially an entire system. And that's what I've been designing. And now I've been with AlphaWave Semi for 5 years. We have a center in Pune and Bangalore, about 500 people in all, and it is the largest center for AlphaWave anywhere in the world. And I mainly take care of all the IPs from India. So IPs are one component of the SOC, which can be sold to multiple or can be used in multiple SOCs. And it's because one company cannot make everything that they're putting into an IC. So for example, a car manufacturer cannot manufacture tires, for example, right? So they'll buy the tires, they'll buy the wheel hubs, they'll buy the axle. Their core competency is the engine. So that's what IPs are like in an SOC, that they are components which Bridgestone can sell to any car manufacturer. So that's what we designed. Of course, we design very high-tech, high-speed IPs, and what we work in is the cutting-edge technology of 2 nanometers and 3 nanometer, and we also using the advanced packaging, 2.5D, 3D, all of that expertise is here in India. Thank you.
Hello, thanks. Namaskar to everyone. My name is Manoj Soman, and I am analog mixed signal RF DSP processor designer by profession. And I'm a student of analog design because instead of working for last 30 years in analog design, you still see so much of design space yet to be explored by any individual. So I actually represent in this panel probably a hardcore hands-on circuit designer in the panel. I started my journey into analog design after graduating from IISc Bangalore in Texas Instruments. That is the time when analog was actually just starting in India in multinational companies. And after that, I worked for several both multinational as well as startup companies like Cirrus Logic, Cadence Synopsys. I was part of a processor company called Tensilica, which works on a customizable DSP processors. So I worked there, and also many startups which eventually got acquired by multinational companies. That is one of the whatever concern points in this fabulous ecosystem story. But nevertheless, that was the thing. And my area of interest is in low power circuit designs and high speed circuit design like SerDes and modem chips and all. And I hold 11 US patents. And I like to work in the low power space. So anywhere and everywhere I get opportunity, I work on that area. I also like to teach. So I'm currently an independent consultant in semiconductor and embedded system. And also as my interest, I teach at COEP. Some of the people might be there, analog design. So looking forward to have a interesting discussion. I guess we'll get time to say our points subsequently. Right? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sandeep. And this is Niranjan Pol. I, for last, working in this industry for last 28 years. I spent 10 years in SF Bay Area and then 18 years in India. Currently, I'm working for Seagate Technology. I lead what we call Seagate Research Group for last 5 years, almost 6 years. I did big design, led big design teams for Seagate here in Pune, and then moved to Seagate Research, and for the same reasons which our moderator Sandeep talked about, system design, and I'll soon come to that. I'm also associated with SemiX, which is an incubator at, actually it's an IIT Bombay based organization that closely intends to work with government, industry, and obviously academia, including IIT Bombay. So there are really good takeaways from there, and I'll soon address that if you get a chance. Uh, in my personal professional life, I have 6 patents and 4 pending. I closely work with Ashok Chandak, who just arrived for ISA, and represented Pune in ISA in 2016 and 2017. I did 2 international IEEE conferences in Pune. One was in 2013 and one was in 2018. I worked many of you to organize those conferences in Pune, and that got Pune on the semiconductor map, if you will. Now, to talk about, I'll just address one of the moot points which Sandeep, advocated, and I absolutely 100% agree with him about the fact that what it needs to be a successful fabless semiconductor company. In our inaugural session, people talked about Pune being Oxford of India. There are so many colleges. We are vicinity of IITs. And I'll not just stop here for Pune, but even for Bangalore. One of the major problems which you really advocated is the fact is that the architecture team that closely work with product marketing is something is missing. And that's because we have less indigenous system level companies. One of the reasons I moved from semiconductor group within Seagate to Seagate Research is exactly for the same, is that decisions are not made here in India. Decisions are always made offshore. And we have good teams who implement those decisions. While in Seagate Research, we get that autonomy. I mean, I start with FPGA work, and then I choose my own design, and I choose my own design patterns and how I wanted to do it, my team wanted to do it. And I think I realized that after working in this industry for 23 years is that we need to move to the decision-making points. And things are changing though, Sandeep. Like we're talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, we talked about Vikasit Bharat. We recently, for example, CDAC launched an HPC chip. The chip is being designed by a Hyderabad-based company, MOS chip, and it will be supplanted with physical design by a Japanese company. Now, things are changing because the decisions will be made by CDAC, mostly in Pune or somewhere in India. As we have more and more India-based demands, I think things will change, but we should not be satiated with that, because we don't want to just fulfill our dream with doing systems for India, but we'll need to do it for the world. So, but I think to get started somewhere, this is a good start. What we really need are the architects who work on system design, who guide how to get things done. Talent availability, in my opinion, is not a problem. I worked with COP for last almost 15 years. We imbibe almost 9 to 10 interns every year. They get converted. That's a good pipeline, and most of the companies, I don't want to say that we do it here alone. Most of the companies do that. I think talent is not a problem. The problem is about the architecture team, and also by vertical owners, so that they wanted to get things done for their own companies here in India by
Speaker फट गया. Up. Up. No problem. Anyways, can you hear me in the back? ठीक है, ऐसे ही करते हैं. Without any ICs in picture. It's working? So first, actually, one time check. How much time do I have? 10 more minutes. In that case, I want to ask the audience जो आईसी डिज़ाइनर हैं वो खड़े हो जाएं। अच्छा, अब आप में से किसने अपनी कंपनी शुरू करी है? आप आइए। So,
Thank you.
tell everyone or me or us, what were your challenges? What help
A lot many
would you
challenges.
need?
Oh, a lot many challenges. I mean, we come from the kind of ecosystem where I think what we could look at it as an opportunity, but that's an hindrance. So one is the collaboration. So I think that is where teaming up or unity and give and take kind of relationship, that is one of the challenges. So it's more of and right kind of resources when it comes to hire people. So kind of a skill where I've been interacting with academics since nearly more than 1.5 decades. And I've been indicating about potential what a semiconductor, in semiconductor we in India can do. However, the response from, and it's an unfortunate, and I do agree that others might have a different experiences. To focus on core technology, material science-based technology, whereas academics were entirely focused on information in and information out kind of a businesses. So that's entirely IT. So having right set of talents was one of challenges. I won't advocate challenges on the finance or the or availability of funds. That kind of that's probably pretty much available, can be arranged once there is a good trust. What kind of deliverables or the kind of skills that we can gather into. But then primary challenge was this, teaming up.
Product आपका बन गया?
Sorry?
You have finished your product, or what's your product?
Well, we came up with a few of the IPs which would, which happen to be our strength, and based on that, we are in better business to cater as a services for
Okay.
others.
Okay.
Is there anything
So
else? I
have
could
you?
add? Go ahead, please go ahead.
That's okay.
Tell me. I'll address that.
No, I think just to allude back on the systems problem, so this is one of the real problems. Maybe I'll give you, just to put the things in perspective. In NXP, we design 40% of the chips which are in India, which are made or designed across the world. We consume 15% of the chips in India, which my company is making. But we sell less than 2.5% in India of what we make. So just to put the gap in the perspective, we design 40% of the chips in India, but we are selling only 2.5% or less than that in India. And that's the gap, which is because of not having the system designed, defined in India. I understand that there are some steps which are being made, but I think we need to definitely accelerate. Also, I think you might have heard those nice word of words by Bhavish. So somebody says, okay, I eat oats for the breakfast. Somebody says, I put ice cubes in my, my drinks. So there are certain things I was the first one in SCL Chandigarh in 1997 who made the first hearing aid for India, which was selling less than 1,000 rupees. And that's where the journey started, but we lost somewhere in between to build those systems. But it's the time that we start building those systems. I think we need to enable the startups. Fully agree with you, Sandeep. But these are the opportunities we have. Unless we are selling maybe less than how much? Less than 5 or 10% of the chips in this country. So unless we don't show the word a market, unless we show that we are doing the system innovation, system design, the word will not come to us. So I think that gap we need to build. So I think that will be the driver for, I would say, for the fabless ecosystem.
I agree on this part.
I
agree on this part.
Yeah.
I definitely do agree on this part. So.
Yeah, one of the gaps, what he mentioned about talent issue, I think that's a real problem because the graduates that we get out of colleges have studied individual subjects, but how they will get and view those weave those into the needs of a semiconductor design cycle. I'm not even talking about manufacturing, I'm just talking about architecture design, physical design, and tape out cycle are not good enough. They get ready only after working in industry for 2 or 3 years. Then they start really contributing to it. So to address those, academicians are also working on it. For example, one of the Semi-X at IIT Bombay, they are working on a design course which will run for 2 years. Which will start from architecture to design to physical design, and they will actually tape out a chip amongst some of the cohorts and then analyze the chip as to what went wrong and not during the 2 years. I think while or some of the critics might say that, oh, IIT's job is to really do research or technology development, but they are really addressing some of the issues that we from design companies are facing, and I think that will go a long way. Other academicians, I also suggest you guys get in touch with Swaroop Ganguly, who is here in the audience, or Samir Patel or Prabhanjan, to get more about what Semi-X is doing besides talking to me. Thank you.
I think the challenge on talent is as soon as you train them, NXP hires them.
Well, that's another challenge I was about to mention, that we have brain drain problem.
Startups
Yes. So we struggled a lot. Well,
are not able to afford the kind of money NXP pays them.
well, unfortunately, well, Sandeep, unfortunately, there is another perspective to this is that even after closely working, while they are still in their colleges and closely working on core technologies, it's an unfortunate that post their completion of their education, they go into IT service companies. So that's another kind of, there's a perspective to this. So it's not always about what is lucrative on the core technologies like NXP. I mean, someone going to NXP makes us happy. But someone leaving from here and then because there is something attractive there, I think Sandeep Gupta is trying to agree to this point. No, but
I mean, those are market forces.
Yes,
in
I
the
mean,
end. That you cannot say that you sacrifice a good pay and come and work for an Indian startup. That's not going to happen.
True. I mean, I do agree on that.
Everyone is trying to
Yeah,
make a
I
living.
do agree on that.
I think what needs to happen is for VLSI, even today, there is very little standard coursework in universities and colleges. So that's why you have institutes like CDAC, MOSCHIP has its training institute, there's VLSI Guru, there are tons of these places where we call them as finishing schools. After engineering, students go there, they do a 6-month course or a 1-year course, and then they kind of become employable with us. And then we train them for another 3 months, and then we onboard them, right? So that's when they become productive. So from the time of graduation of a bachelor's to the time a person becomes productive, it's at least 18 months, another 18 months. Even an MTech person who's done a 2-year course is not employable today. So the need of the hour is for colleges to have a very, very solid VLSI coursework with real life projects so that we will have enough engineers across the board to become employable in all kinds of companies.
I strongly agree, and also I have a similar experience when it came to MTech folks. So MTech folks are no different than what typically a BTech or a BE
Ganguly ji,
person is.
See,
one of the,
shall I say something? See, one of the point which was said earlier in this thing is 20% of the workforce is contributed by India worldwide, designers, but they are all captives. And we do not have that encouraging model for them to be dislodged from those MNC high-paying job into a startup, and we have to create that encouraging environment. See, it's not that they want equal salary doing the startup. They are okay to sacrifice some amount of money, but they are really looking at some bit of a safety, and not necessarily only in terms of the funding, but overall their overall lifestyle and every which way. So there could be ways to address those problems, and lot many more people will come out of MNC and do their own startup. As far as curriculum is concerned, see, one of the thing is we, as Niranjan and Sandeep also said, we need a VLSI course specifically targeting towards the semiconductor VLSI course, and not just pure electronics and telecommunication kind of course. And for that, I understand that AICTE has been pushing for VLSI curriculum. One of the things we are doing, the company which I am helping out in high-tech skilling, is we are looking at ways to introduce VLSI embedded kind of activity in their third year and fourth year. It will be completely project-based activity. So by the time they are completing fourth year, they will be employable. And both soft skill and hard skills will be taught. So something like that has to be done, which is more project-oriented, where you actually use Cadence tools, Synopsys tools, those kind of stuff. Yeah.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, everyone. And all of them are available, so you can talk to them, continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for an interesting discussion. We now move on to the second session for today. The theme for this session is Semiconductor Manufacturing Ecosystem. May I invite on stage the panelists, Mr. Rajiv Menon, who is the keynote speaker for today. Mr. Rajiv Menon, President and COO, Tata Projects. Mr. Raghu Panikar, CEO, Keynes Semicon. Mr. Ashok Chandak, President, IESA. And Mr. Harish Chandrasekhar, CEO, Agnit Semiconductors. I request Mr. Sanjeev Keskar, convener SEC, to felicitate the guests. It's my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Rajiv Menon, President and CEO, Tata Projects. He is responsible for sectors including energy and resources, advanced technology facilities, power and metals, transmission and distribution, and international business. With nearly 3 decades of experience in a variety of sectors, Mr. Menon has a robust global understanding of business growth accelerators. I invite Mr. Menon to give his address.
How do you represent this? Good afternoon. Um, well, I'm not a semiconductor specialist, let me clarify that, okay? And sitting through the last sessions, there was a lot of discussion about IC designs and the upstream part of it. Well, and so what I intend to cover about here is a clarification about what is Tata Projects and what's the Tata Group doing about. So that's an introduction, few slides, because there is, Tata Group is too diverse, so it's better to understand we have a clientele in there, a contractor in there, and multiple facets to it, so probably a couple of slides to clarify that. And then just to explain or express around or reflect around what does engineering and construction of a semiconductor facility looks like, what are the complexities in there from our line of sight. I heard a lot of saying that there is a lot of talent. Honestly, I have the reverse of that to say that there is a deficiency of talent. And from my line of sight or our line of sight and where we are. So that's how I'll bring on table, try to keep it as simple as it is possible because there are multiple stakeholders here from diverse sectors within the ecosystem, very difficult to put something relevant to each and all of us. So I'm covering typically the engineering, procurement, construction, or build-up of a semiconductor facility. How does it go on? The technology piece of it, the chip design piece of it, all those, that comes to me from my customers or the end clients, and I am not in that, well, I'm saved of that trouble, I would say, but that's where it is. So a few slides on that. Give me a time check if I'm going off, but the intent here is to just give a high-level reflection on the complexities, opportunities, and the challenges that come along with that. This is the simplest I could put about Tata Groups, okay? $150 billion, some multiple companies, 30 of them, how we reflect within us, within each sectors, where do we lie? So if you see there in the midst in infrastructure spectrum, you would see Tata Projects. Tata Projects, we are the infrastructure design, build, construction company, so we build projects. That's our DNA. So we have within us the clienteles within the Tata Group. It could be Tata Chemicals, Tata Power, Tata Electronics in the case of semiconductors. So who is building up a semiconductor facility? It's Tata Electronics. So they could be our client, no guarantee, no entitlement. We have our RPTs, we have our competitive routes, and so on. So that's how we work. Within our spectrum, again, let me clarify, it's only 10% of 20% max of my business that comes from Tata Group companies. So we cater pan-India, we are there in Africa, we are there in multiple spaces. So I just wanted to put across, I'm not speaking for Tata Electronics, I'm just talking about what we do and how do we see this ecosystem. So that's where we are. This is about Tata Projects in the space where we are. And why I put this is, even when we talk about building our Tata semiconductor industry, my talent from across sectors helps me to do that. Now, when I'm talking a semiconductor industry building up, there is a lot of civil structural, there is a lot of mechanical, electrical packages, utility systems forms a big thing. There are about 100-odd gases that goes into the system, chemicals which gets into it, and on a super fast track schedule. So what I'm trying to bring here is we do energy transition, that's in power. We are into the green energy side of it, multiple other facets, what goes into the entire energy transition, oil and gas, then we are there in the space, nuclear. We do all the infrastructure projects. In Pune, the closest I could say is the Pune Metro, that underground, above ground, that we have a big role to play in constructing that. And then, of course, these are gamuts what we play on. Just some marquee projects, Parliament House, if we say the Trans-Harbour Sea Link, Noida Airport, Pune Metro, I already said, refineries, then we get into the wind tunnels. This is for ISRO or the DRDOs, and the blast furnace and steel plant. Why I put this is, all these varied experiences and the diversity in which we operate helps us to do a semiconductor business in a better manner. So I'm just opening out that to say that let's not limit ourselves into one city, one stuff, because this is going to be a pan-India, a global side of it, and so on. And each of us would have a definite role to play. So it's just about how a bold bet we want to take, how we want to come out of our comfort zones, and how much we convert all those challenges into opportunities. That's how it is. It's pretty complex. Let me be upfront in telling that, but then we see opportunities in that. This is the Spectrum Advanced Tech Facilities where I operate. I won't get into that. This is the Semicon facility, the commercial scale which we are building up for Micron in Sanand. Okay, so now this is an assembly and testing. How we normally look at a semiconductor is if you have a fab or a wafer facility, that's the foundry, what we call it, which is more about a front end, not a back end, and then you have an assembly and testing. This is assembly and testing facility, okay? And this is around about 1.5 million square feet. That's the footprint what we are talking of, 50% of that clean room which goes into it. So it's huge. I have slide going ahead. What's unique about it? First of its kind. We are enabled it to be on a ZLD. It's a LEED gold standard. So when you talk from a sustainability point of view, we have enabled technology platforms to monitor this project across engineering, procurement, construction. We are using 4D beams, which is again the technology advance. We are using hybrid modular construction facilities. Why? Because these are all again on super fast track projects. You have to enable it more into all these fronts to get into it. Before I get into semiconductor industry, the way I look at the ecosystem is there are 3 levels of transition that goes on. Okay, now one is energy, the supply chain, which we have understood the resilience has to be there to have a more indigenous solution. Digital platform, because that helps you to make it faster, because technology keeps on changing. Energy transition, because huge energy consumption would be here, so you have to make it greener and so on. So that's where it assimilates into saying how the ecosystem looks like or the evolution of a semiconductor ecosystem. We talked about a lot of numbers. There is a government incentive, PLI schemes, 76,000 crores gone into it. There are about 4 projects which has been formally approved on the subsidy. Each of them has a roadmap. Each of them have been identified, locations, the Bhumi Pujan, everything, dates have been done. So those are the ones which we see. The one is the Micron, which is going on from a subsidized route. There are others which are definitely there, which are in principle approved. But we have the Micron. Tata Electronics talking about 2 projects. One is the foundry, the first one to do a fab, which will come up in Dholera. Then another OSAT, which is the outsourced semiconductor facility, assembly and testing, which will come up in Assam. And of course, Murugappa Group talking about the one in again Sanand, which is again an OSAT. And I would leave it Lagu to explain what is there on the Kane side of it and all. Each of these projects are real. It's at different phases. There is a technology selected or the process know-how, the way you want to put it. And then, if you see the integrated, the bottom, the schedules, why I just put there to say is, parallelly you have to do the procurement, parallelly you have to do the erections and so on. That's where the complexity comes in when you are doing on a super fast track project. There, and the quantums, if you see over there, you look at the concreting, you look at the level of clean room requirements over there. Now clean room, again, there are classes in which it is defined, but then when you get into a foundries, you would have a class 5 and class 6, whereas if you get into an assembly, it would be more on the 7 and the 8. Each comes with a different, more precise requirement around it. This is just to tell you that there is a lot of complexities around how you built up, by how you can do it, and then the ecosystem to support these projects in India, it's very critical. People may compare and say that in Taiwan, we did it in, 12 months. In Singapore, we did it in 14 months. I'll tell you, it's not apple-to-apple comparison. Okay, somewhere you can do precast, somewhere you cannot do it. There's an ecosystem available in that country to do it. So let's be real around that, and this is what we try to say, that lessons learned from each project, that's very critical. We can do mistakes, but let those be new mistakes around it. And we need those ecosystems over here. To it, we say the first tool in should be on XYZ date. From there, all the tools get in, you have your hookups, and then you find the final chip coming in either packaged or you get into a wafer and so on and so forth. This is why I put up is the integrated EPC or the engineering procurement is the key to success. If you cannot integrate it, you won't reach into the you won't reach your end results in the time and the desired qualities and the cost what you'd mean. And to do that, the successes are people. That's the key. Okay, now when I say people, I also say the safety of the people. Okay, so safety, the people side of it is very key. It's difficult to get that semiconductor specific experience in the country. So we have been mapping globally around it. Again, when we map, one thing we have to see is the cultural assimilation. It's not just getting in a person, it's also to say that how that person gets culturally oriented into these projects and so on. And there are in the short term, we are doing that. The key smart SMEs, what we call, we are getting it from international side of it. On a medium term, we want the local upskilling to be done either at vendors facility or through the trainer sessions, and of course, with the academicians coming in, we are already on that. That's one is on the design side of it. On the procurement, because there are very critical utility packages what we have in the MEP side of it. It can be ultra pure waters, it can be gas delivery system, chemical delivery systems, and the clean room itself, besides all the GIS and the electrical side that comes to it. So that's a supply chain resilience which is pretty strong on how it defines. New age project delivery, very key again, because it depends on how technologically you're delivering it to ensure that you want to get into a predictable project delivery. When I've written that delivering predictable and sustainable projects, that's actually our company's vision, and to and so on. Supply chain, when we get it, we are partnering to get into the vendor ecosystem. I have a slide subsequently which talks about some of the key packages. It's just to give you a reflection about the bandwidth that's required to do this. Scale and speed, if we continue to the way we are doing business, I think it's not going to last longer. We have to think ahead that how do we get into more on the precast and the modularizations, to a new age construction methodologies, how do we do partnerships in a better ways and deliver these complex products to more on the mechanized side of it. People just, another reflection about when I said there is lack of Indian subject matter experts, and I tell you this is real. We have been, when I say subject matter experts, it's again not to design the chip, when we say that certain specifics to that, are we having a lot of gamuts in there. We have companies in India, but then they are also the subsidiaries maybe of the global firms and so on and so forth, where it's not a full-blown out effort that is done from India. We all know how a global engineering firm functions. So the high-end things are still not fully done from here. That's the real aspect. And even if you talk about the global companies, this must also, it's a very hot area that's happening. So the people side of it, we have a strategy in pipeline to say how do we deal immediately our clients are mapping. And many of these projects, let me tell you, are also in a unique concept of open book estimates convertible to EPCs and so on. It's not easy to at the initial stage to say, this is my cost, this is my vendors and so on. We do these projects a little more on partnerships, which says that together let's decide, let's negotiate, let's work towards it and so on. Sounds rosy, but then it's happening. Okay, there's a lot of trust and transparency that goes into that. That's the people side. If you get into the supply chain, this is what I talked about, the necessity to have early engagement on those critical packages. There you need to do those engagements, and there are 2 or 3 global players and things which comes into it. It's very important that we get into those things and have competitive bidding for the long lead items which are there. This covers a major spectrum of the supply chain when we talk it from a design engineering perspective. And again, there is lack of established local supply chain. Okay, there are a few of the companies who are like iClean, who has partnered somewhere else. You have CleanTex, you have Ion Exchange, Thermax, and some of others. But then again, the scalability, the qualification, and other things that still needs to be vetted on. How does it go on? I would say partnership is the key. We have been talking to multiple of them, and each of these, the parties in the Taiwans or in King, for the projects we are talking, even if it is 3, 4 of them, do we have the bandwidth to cater to them as people? The work workforce, the supply chain resilience, and so on. But that's something where we feel that through digitalization, through the partnerships, through the supply chain, other facets, what we do, we should be able to do that. So that's the real complexities, what we put. My last slide, which talks about key takeaways. It is a complex environment, but that is why it brings in all that opportunities along with it. It depends on what is your line of sight and how do you see it. It's a challenge you see it or an opportunity you see it. We do see it as an opportunity, but we do see it as an opportunity because we believe that the ecosystem will support us doing that. And that's what we are planning to do. People availability, very critical. Let's not believe that we have all the talent, first thing. I've been hearing that, but let's first accept that there is a deficiency, okay? And we have to upskill ourselves if we want to meet the time schedules, if we want to meet the quality. These are precision projects. You have, I mean, it is indeed complex. I have spent a lot of time in the oil and gas segment. I have been with chemicals, gases, and so on, but I still tell you, here, if you have 150 or gas going in 30, 40 chemicals, you talk of ZLDs, you talk of the time frame what we want to meet, and the statutory requirements that's there in each of our locations. Okay, so it's different. And, but then, it's an opportunity. And that's what I would leave here to say, that there's so much of opportunity across the value chain. Each of you stakeholders has a big role to play in it. It's just that, how do we focus on it and take that bold step and move ahead? Together, I'm sure we'll be able to get there. I hope it was not long enough, and thank you, gentlemen. I'm sure they would add a lot of value. If you hear conflicts from what I said and what the other panel said, believe them. Okay, for sure. But thank you, it's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, and wish you all good luck.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. So it was really a great overview of what infrastructure is required for semiconductor manufacturing. And Tata Projects is really doing some great work, both with Micron ATMP unit and Tata Fabs. Let me quickly introduce our next three speakers. We have a great panel lineup here today about the semiconductor manufacturing. Rajiv ji, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So first, Mr. Raghu Panikar, he is the CEO of Kaynes Semiconductor, and Raghu is a good friend for last 20 plus years. He was heading Mentor Graphics, EDA tool in India, and now for last almost 3 years, you are with Kaynes, and you know Kaynes has announced already big plans about semiconductor manufacturing. So, Mr. Raghu Panikar. We have Ashok Chandak, again, excellent friend for, again, so many years. He was in Motorola Semiconductor, then he was heading NXP in India, and now he's president of IESA. Again, veteran in our semiconductor industry for more than 30 years. Welcome, Ashok, to the panel. And Harish Chandrasekhar, again, a very interesting person. He has incubated Agnit Semiconductor. He's a CEO of Agnit. And, you know, MIT has supported a gallium nitride fab in IIC, and Harish and team have developed first transistor gallium nitride in India. In the morning, I talked about Government of India's focus on semiconductor manufacturing. 50% incentive is coming from ISM, India Semiconductor Mission, under CMOS fab policy, under LED and TFT display policy, as well as compound semiconductor policy. And ATMP OSAT projects are also covered under compound semiconductor policy. So it is a fantastic policy. $10 billion has been allocated, and already out of 10 billion, 8 billion has been disbursed. So now they are thinking to increase that budget to $25 billion, and which is under consideration. So semiconductor manufacturing is a very big session. All yours, Ashok.
Good Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you, everyone. I'm really glad to see the full house. It's a pretty interesting event today, and in this particular session, we are going to discuss about the manufacturing topic. Manufacturing is always an important subject, and now even central government is having the increased impetus on the manufacturing topic after elections. I'm not a politician, by the way. And semiconductor particularly is a hot topic. It's a buzzword. Everybody is talking about it last 2 years. And everybody is aware that semiconductor manufacturing is a bit complex topic to be cracked out of India. And we have been trying almost like about 2 decades now to get a semiconductor plant in the country. Other than the big size plant of SCL Chandigarh, the progress has been very minuscule. I think about a decade ago, a couple of more fabs were announced, but they never see light of the day. I think there were 3 plants, 3 proposals, those were approved. So today we are going to look at this manufacturing related topic. And first of all, it's big, complex, tough. And the question is now to my 2 fellow panelists, why it makes so tough to make a semiconductor fab in the country? I mean, we hear some general comment, it's complex, we have no technology, it's capital intensive, about 6 billion, 8 billion, 10 billion required. We don't have desired skill sets, and the list can go on. There are many things which acts as a deterrent for setting up that semiconductor fab. But though, despite of that, now there is a good news. Already one major plant from Tata is announced. There are several projects in the pipeline pending on the table of the Ministry of Electronics and IT for approval. So there is a interest and there is some progress. So Raghu, first to you. On a semiconductor particularly, I am asking about the fab side now, and I will come to OSAT later on. What's your view?
Thank you, Ashok, and thank you for having me here. Let's look at the journey a little bit, for where India started and where we are now. It's almost similar, like Keynes Technology has been primarily an EMS company, electronic manufacturing services, for the last 38 years. For us to reach here, I mean, all through the struggle that we went through, and probably in the last 3 years, it's one of the best phase that we are in. We are a $250 million revenue company. We are a $3.25 billion in valuation as we stand now. But then it's a necessary, we were bringing these components. Why did the chip companies don't come out at least 10 years there? And then stop. While the investments did not chip design. Leaving aside whether the IP exists or not exists, right? We are very good with all the services companies that came into India. Look at what Wipro did. Wipro went to Alcatel, did system design and brought the expertise into India. How did Qualcomm come into India? Qualcomm acquired a services company called Spike and they came into India. How did Broadcom come into India? So these are all success stories. So let's not negate away the services companies came into India. And why do services companies come more? The last 2 weeks, there are 2 companies here. They acquired one company which is a product company. So, you know, these all things would happen. And it's good to hear L&T now being services all this while now starting to do product. Scient, recent, and let's look at the positive. Now coming to the question, what is the reason?
These discussions will always need a lot of time and we will have constraint on that. So let me jump to the important aspect first, which is about MSME. And we heard in the morning that Pune region, particularly in Maharashtra, there is a large pool of MSMEs. And they look at this semiconductor buzzword here and there floating around in the air. What can I do into this actually? So my next point coming up is there an opportunity for MSMEs into this semiconductor sector, be it into the ancillary to the fab manufacturing, be it to the OSAT, and be it to the design or service ecosystem. All 3 aspects of the value chain is important. And this conference is about the semiconductor ecosystem. So let's not ignore the other 2 aspects actually in addition to manufacturing. So we will take next few minutes and look at what are the opportunities for MSMEs into this sector. And may I start with Harish with you.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you NCCIA for having me. So I'm part of a startup called Agnet Semiconductors. Interestingly, we were on that list that Sandeep put up earlier. And so we are a gallium nitride product company, and I think all those three words are actually very important to our story. So gallium nitride semiconductors are a compound semiconductor class of materials. And if you ever use a fast charger, you've used a product with gallium nitride in it. And it's actually revolutionizing use cases across the defense and aerospace industries, across power conversion and telecommunication. So that's the gallium nitride piece of it. We're also one of the few startups in the country which are either adventurous enough or foolhardy enough, however you want to look at it, to actually work on manufacturing technology for this compound semiconductor material as well. So as Sanjeev has already mentioned, MIT has very generously funded a small volume production facility in IISc. And so we've also been, startup like ours, have also been able to develop manufacturing technology. So what it also means is that we now have an indigenous manufacturing technology. And the third piece of it is that, yes, of course, we are a company. What that means is that we have markets, we have paying customers. And thankfully, these customers and markets also happen to be currently located in India, because whether it's defense and telecom or whether it's power conversion, there are end markets in the country whose users can actually demand a certain kind of components from people like us, and we can think of ourselves as IDMs, and who can actually demand, who are actually making these systems, who are specifying requirements, and who are saying that these are the kind of gallium nitride components we need, will you be able to deliver, right? So that's the scenario where we're in. So if I could also, talk a little bit about your earlier question, it's more than putting up fabs in the country, it's also a question of what kind of fabs do you start out by putting. And that's a very important piece of it as well. And compound semiconductor seems to be a nice niche opportunity. It doesn't take $10 billion to put up a fab. You can have a very large end market in the country. And if you look at it on a scale of complexity, right? So if you can call silicon solar PV as commodity semiconductors, and you can think about your 2 nanometer, 3 nanometer technology as the most complex piece of manufacturing known to mankind today, right? Without exception. So this might be a nice niche technologies where we can actually build some indigenous capability, where we already have indigenous capability and an indigenous market to some extent. Then the question is, how are we going to cater to these markets, and how are we going to, let's say, be globally competitive in terms of the products that we make, right? So that's in a nutshell about what we do and how we view this particular market. In terms of opportunities for MSMEs, yeah, we're a startup, so we are very much, we probably don't even rank in the MSME, so we're probably like, much smaller than that. But this is where we also see the opportunity. So there are disruptive technologies which are coming up, which startups can cater to. And in terms of MSMEs itself, whether it's in terms of the semiconductor manufacturing ecosystem, I think enough has been said, especially, also in the introductory address, about what is it that we are missing. We are missing a lot of things, especially in the supply chain, right? So for example, even things like chemicals. We have chemical giants in the country, yet most of the semiconductor grade chemicals are all imported into the country, right? So we may not have equipment makers, but what does it take to actually make, let's say, power supplies that can then go into an equipment of, let's say, something made by an AMAT, right? And similarly on the packaging end as well, even things like gold wire bonds are probably, being imported today, right? So these are all opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities in this particular sector, especially in India. If you're situated here today, best time to be in the semiconductor sector in the country probably, right?
Thank you. Raghu, what's your view, opportunities for MSME sector?
So let me connect with the yeah, okay. Let me connect the OSAT part of it. Now, somebody asked me 2-3 days back, what is the challenge in OSAT? I said, everything is a challenge. Have we built factories for OSAT in India? We have not, so that's a challenge. Do we have capacity? We have trained manpower, we don't have, so that's a challenge. Do we have raw materials? We don't have, so that's a challenge. Everything is, do we have customers? You have to find customers, so it's all a challenge. And nevertheless, we had this challenge 30 years back because we didn't have the semiconductor chip design capability, so that was all a challenge. But having said that, I think what we believe is, from a Kane standpoint, doing all the EMSs all these years, we had the possibility to do more of EMS or more of complex products and stuff, but we decided while we do more of those EMS, let's backward integrate, do a semiconductor manufacturing, and also do the bare board PCB, because these are two critical items, right? So when we decided to do the semiconductor manufacturing, which is nothing but OSAT, now putting an OSAT fab, you need the capex. That's where the government support is coming in, and thankfully this $10 billion, we are a part of the journey, and then hopefully in the next few days we get ourselves approved into it. But then when we are doing this, product companies or the companies like Agnet, you guys, plus a lot of these semiconductor product companies, with they coming in, the capacity has to be used. Our fab has to be used. We cannot always depend upon, the export of our products, right? Because why should somebody come from Southeast Asia to India to use our OSAT plant, other than being cost competitive? So we have to look at product companies within India. I know that is far and few at this point in time, but then with all these opportunities coming, which is the design linked initiative, L&T talking about products, Sign talking of products, I think our fab should get consumed with this. And with that, you put more lines and stuff. So after the first 5 years, while the subsidy dries out, we have to start looking at, beyond 5 years as we build the capacity now, as we build the capex now. So those are all the challenges. I'm sure once we move in this direction, a lot of import of these raw materials would come in. And that's where we have to look at localizing of all these products in India. Maybe the raw materials, we should work with MSMEs in India to see how that could be localized around the area that we put a fab. Then we should look at the equipment guys. The equipments that we are looking at for our processes. We have started talking to them that how could they manufacture some of the spares in India. So they should look at some of the EMSs to manufacture those spares. And eventually they should look at, putting the equipment manufacturing in India. So it's a mix of MSMEs for localization. It's a mix of the big manufacturing guys to come into India so that, all these things would help in the cost optimization of it and finally net effect to the product itself.
Thank you, Raghu. There is one basic principle. If there is a problem, there is a challenge, there is an opportunity. So Raghu already said everything is a problem. So I see everything is opportunity. And I think there is a misnomer. MSME sector sometimes thinks that semiconductor is a big boys game. Yes, it is big boys game. It's a big capex mainly for fab. But there are several ecosystem topics within semiconductor industry where MSME would find the opportunities actually. Not only that design topic, which is one definitely important, but also, there are dies required, there are small machines, equipments required, there are construction topics, there are supply chain topics, those are required. There is a skilling, talent development. You start looking at the entire value chain, and at every slice, there is opportunity and there is a possibility. Now somebody can come up and say, we don't have expertise. Come on, no problem. You do, everything is global. Do partnerships, do collaborations. There are several such entities available, particularly in Asian countries. Those are willing to join hands with somebody and start to do the things. So there are plenty of things which I would say MSME sector could contribute into this one. So I think in view of time, I would stop my questions and maybe I will take 1 or 2 questions from the audience side and see how we answer that actually. So maybe if there is a mic and somebody is interested to ask any point, please go ahead.
Am I audible? Yes. Okay, so I'm Swarup Ganguly. I'm a professor at IIT Bombay, and for several years I led the Semiconductor Fabrication Lab. So I'm very happy to be here for this event and this session. I have 2 points to make. One, taking off from what Raghu was saying. I want to talk about, or I want us to think about the role that prototyping fabs play, like IMEC in Belgium or Albany Nanotech in New York, in the context of what role MSMEs can play. So in prototype fabs like this, an equipment maker like Applied Materials or Tokyo Electron will put a tool and their suppliers will all be around it. That's a place where companies can try out new things and prove them before they find, a large customer. And prototype fabs often have very large support from the government, so it really subsidizes the cost for the MSMEs. So as a community or for ecosystem building, that is something that we must look at in terms of the manufacturing ecosystem. The second point to what Harish was saying, I would like to sort of reinforce that by saying that, by sort of sharing with this group that from the IIT Bombay fabrication labs, we developed gallium nitride technology RF. We started in 2010 when we made the first gallium nitride HEMT. It was developed over the last 15 years with support and collaboration with ISRO. And we reached a point where now we have the gallium nitride devices, interconnects, passives, so that a full power amplifier MMIC can be built, designed and built, and all of that technology, the process technology and the modeling technology, is being ported over to ISRO, and they are putting up a small volume production fab with it. So I think that we are making good beginnings, and happy to share that and working together with this ecosystem. That is the reason why I'm here. So thanks, MCCIA.
Great. Thank you, Professor Ganguly. And yes, prototype fab is very, very important actually, and there are quite a few of them that are operating in India, including there was a Sitar in Bangalore actually. Now SCL is also helping on prototyping topics to various fabless ecosystem players. In addition, this topic is already in discussion at the MIT level, where the IESA, India Electronics Association, have made multiple times the representations and recommendations to have more prototype fabs if we are to really expand our fabless ecosystem. In addition, there is also discussion going on to create few semiconductor research parks in the country. So these will be integrated facility of 50, 100, 200 acres kind of stuff with everything inside the campus, including the prototype fab. Thank you. You got some question?
Like Professor said, mini fabs are something that we have to really focus on rather than trying to go for a big one. And mini fab meaning like even up to 65 nanometer kind of stuff. And for that, the ecosystem, allied ecosystem is easier to build, much easier than the high-end fabs, and cost-wise also that will be, and that is something that I understand is being looked at a government level also. And one of the things that should be done on priority aggressively would be to, let's say through MCCIA and ISA, is to identify non-semiconductor MSMEs who can contribute, list of non-semiconductor small and medium companies who can actually contribute to the semiconductor activity. Because a lot of those people may not know that they have a skill set available which could be utilized for, so I mean, MCCIA and ISA and other organizations can actually take initiative to create such a list of companies and groom them, to
Makes
get
sense.
into this.
So just to answer your first point, it is again, it's not that India and the industry is looking at only cutting edge of technologies, which is 3, 5, 10 nanometer. We are not pushing for that right now, nor MIT is pushing for that. So even the 18 and 28 and 45 and 65, those will be equally useful, because there are plenty of semiconductors still. They are going to use these nanometer nodes over next decade. So that would continue actually. I think we may take one more last question because probably we are running out of time.
Hello? I would just like to supplement the point that you just mentioned. I'm Vikram Saranke. I run a precision engineering metrology company. And recently we came across the opportunities in semiconductor. Never we could thought that a granite that we use for manufacturing a coordinate measuring machine would have applications in the semiconductor area. And we have recently started supplying granite parts to one of the largest metrology company in the world in semiconductor. I think there are many opportunities in this space. I just came back from attending Semicon West in San Francisco, which happened to be last week. Yeah. And they are doing an exhibition in Delhi. And I think I would appeal that maybe the Chamber of Commerce and Pune-based companies should take participate in this exhibition to expose ourselves to this ecosystem as well as understand their requirements from their side. So this is something that we should take it up through ISA. Thank you.
So just to update the audience, Semicon India event was executed by IESA last 2 years under the guidance from Ministry of Electronics and IT. This year event is being organized by an organization called SEMI along with MMI for exhibition. and ISA is one of the partner or supporting that event actually. Event is coming up in September. If anybody wants to put up their exhibition and stall, please send a mail or request to ISA and we will facilitate that participation. And this year the event is taking shape very well. There are more than 450 exhibitors, those are already signed up actually. So it's growing pretty well. I think we will take a pause now in view of time. I just want to add one point here is this particular sector, both semiconductor and electronics, is somehow, sorry to use the same word, is really hotbed right now. So everybody wants to jump here, everybody wants to participate, and plenty of opportunities that exist. The market is going to increase to almost like $100 billion semiconductors for India by 2030, and maybe $400 to $500 billion for electronics. And there are several government policies, those are very, very useful. There is a report which is ISA has already published called Compendium of Semiconductor Policies. You can take a reference to that. So there is a PLI, there is a DLI, there is a specs, then there is a EMCs, and there are many things going on, including there is a national policy on electronics, which was done 2013, 2019, and new one is coming up now, 2024, and we are again participating and giving a lot of inputs into that. So there are really, I would say, happy days are ahead, and this is going to be the major contribution to the India's GDP by electronics and semiconductor industry, not only catering to the local demand, but also looking at the export potential that exists. With that, in view of time, we'll take a pause. We'll be available here and we can chat more actually after this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With this, we now break for lunch and we'll be back here at 2:30 for the next session. Thank you.